del Instituto de Biología, el seminario semanal, que esta vez lo tuvimos que hacer en un día que no es el habitual, porque tuvimos unos días de descanso, ¿no? Hace unos días, espero que todos hayan tenido un buen puente. Y bueno, yo solamente les voy a decir las regulaciones de seguridad del auditorio, que son muy básicas. En caso de que suene una alarma o haya un terremoto, tenemos que abandonar el auditorio de forma ordenada. Pues la mitad del auditorio sale por aquella puerta y la otra mitad sale por esta puerta, ¿no? Espero que no pase nada. Y bueno, tendremos la oportunidad de escuchar esta plática. Ulises, que es el investigador, ¿cómo se dice?, el que recibe el honor aquí en esta institución, los va a presentar. Pues adelante, Ulises. Sí, gracias.
Bueno, pues hoy les voy a presentar a la investigadora. Esto me cuesta muchísimo trabajo y ahorita me va a patear. Eleonor Buillo. Bueno, ella es una investigadora postdoctoral en el laboratorio de Gloria Coruzzi en la Universidad de Nueva York. Para los que estén familiarizados con el tema, el laboratorio de Gloria Coruzzi pues es uno de los líderes mundiales en nutrición vegetal y arquitectura de la raíz, ¿no? Entonces, Eleonor, pues, aparte de ser una excelente investigadora postdoctoral, pues ha tenido una carrera muy relevante en este campo, ¿no? Se ha dedicado desde su doctorado, trabajó en INRA en Montpellier con el doctor Alain Goyot y Philippe Nacri, y desde hace unos 2-3 años, desde el 2014, pues está trabajando con Gloria Coruzzi. Dentro de sus artículos más importantes hay uno que me gusta mucho, que es Nature Plants, que básicamente es uno de los primeros casos donde ella describió cómo un transportador de nitrógeno también puede ser un transportador de oxígeno. Entonces parece que es uno de los artículos clásicos que van a ser uno de los artículos clásicos en biología vegetal, ¿no? Y pues bueno, hoy Eleonor nos viene a platicar un poquito de algunas cosas que ella está haciendo en el laboratorio de Gloria Coruzzi. Algunas de esas cosas pues son, empezamos a hacerlas en colaboración cuando yo estaba allá en Nueva York, pero también hay otras cosas que ella se ha metido pues, a hacer un modelaje de redes de desarrollo, ¿no? Entonces, pues es un placer para mí tener aquí a Eleonor, y bueno, pues bienvenida al Instituto Eleonor. Por cierto, Eleonor entiende español si le hablan despacito, ¿eh? Entonces, si le quieren hacer preguntas en español, está bien. A lo mejor también si quieren hacer preguntas en inglés, pues mucho mejor, ¿no?
Hola. So, thank you to the organizers for inviting me, and thank you everyone for being here. So today I would like to talk to you about a project that is still in progress and that uses natural variation in root response to nitrogen across various Arabidopsis accessions to find genes involved in this response. But to start, I would like to put this into broader context, because besides the fundamental research aspect, there are also economic and environmental implications. So why should we care about how plants use nitrogen? Because nitrogen is a major component of fertilizers, and the use of fertilizer the massive use of fertilizer by agriculture disturb the natural nitrogen cycle. So here you have a map of NAMI, which is net anthropogenic and input. So it measures somehow the intensity of human perturbation to the natural end cycle. And you can see that the perturbation is particularly important in industrialized countries and developing countries. So, and most importantly, this goes with water and air pollution, which is now very concerning. So here you can see the water pollution level related to nitrogen, and you can see that the map overlaps very well with the previous map. So we need to understand how plants use nitrogen, because maybe if we understand that better and we can control it better, maybe we can find a way to reduce the use of fertilizer and then to reduce the pollution. So why is nitrogen so important to plants? So as you know, plants find most of their nutrients in the soil, and some of them are required at very high level, and they are called macronutrients, and nitrogen is one of them. So as you can see here, if you compare a field of maize that was supplied with nitrogen or without, the plants in presence with nitrogen grow much bigger and higher, and they are also greener. The availability of nitrogen in the soil is highly variable. So here you can see the variation of nitrate concentration along a linear transect in the field, and you can see there are very important variations. You have like 1,000-fold change depending on where the measure is taken in the field. So this is a problem for plants. And in addition to this linear variation, there are also variations within depth in the soil. So this is mostly, in part, due to the fact that nitrate is a very mobile molecule, which means that it can be easily washed out from the soil by rain. So if it rains just after fertilizer are applied in the field, the nitrate is going to be completely washed out and go straight to rivers and induce pollution there. So this is part of the problem also for pollution. So how do plants deal with these high variations in concentration of nitrate in the soil? Of course, plants cannot move to go where nitrate is, but they can adjust root growth to forage to reach the nutrients in the soil. So this is called foraging. Here you have an example, an illustration of this foraging response. So here it's in barley. You have a control condition where the nutrients are applied homogeneously in the medium, and you can see that lateral roots grow evenly along the primary roots. And now if you add a nitrogen, in particular nitrates, as a nitrate-rich patch with localized rich patch, you can see that lateral roots are going to proliferate preferentially within this patch. And this is called foraging. So the root proliferation within a nutrient-rich patch in order to exploit the nutrient is called foraging. This is true actually for various different nutrients, and it's true also for many plants, in particular for Arabidopsis, which is the model I use, and I will show you data on later. So, but how does it affect the fitness of the plant? How does foraging help the plant to develop and reproduce? So here you have a graph showing for two different species how much N is taken up from the soil, from the nutrient-rich patch, depending on the root length density. So you can see that the more the N capture increase when the root length increase, so when the foraging response increase. And this was shown to have advantages in terms of fitness in specific conditions for Arabidopsis at least. So it was shown that this is interesting in terms of fitness when you have interspecific competition. So this is what is represented here. So you have two different species together, growing together. And this was shown to be true also for when the source of nitrogen is an organic source being slowly decomposed into nitrates. So foraging is interesting to the plant from a fitness point of view. It's also interesting to us to understand how it works because we can see some applications afterwards. Like if we understand how plants forage for nitrates, you can see that here it means that the plant can take more nitrates and so grow better. And so in terms of agriculture, this is interesting. So of course, what we want to know as a molecular plant biologist is the molecular basis of this encouraging. And to study the molecular basis of encouraging, what we use is a specific system called street food system. This system was set up in our lab by a previous postdoc, Sandrine Mutter, so it was published in 2011. And so in this system, it's in vitro, in plates, transformed plates that we grow vertically, and the medium is solidified agar. And in this system, you just separate the root system into two equivalent parts. One is submitted to nitrogen and the other is not. So this is the split condition. And in addition to that, we also have the control conditions. So in this condition, you have nitrogen on both sides. So this is the control plus N, and no nitrogen at all, controls minus N. And so here you can see that there is preferential growth of lateral root on the plus N part of the split roots. So this is the foraging response I told you previously. But we can be more precise with this response. So a good proxy to study foraging response is to measure the total lateral length of the plant. So this is just the sum of the length of each individual lateral roots. And we can measure it for the different conditions and then compare the total lateral length for the different conditions. So if you compare first these two conditions, so you see a significant increase in lateral length on plus N versus minus N. So this is the foraging response I showed you before. And we can say it's due to a local effect of nitrates because this is all the same plants. It just responds to whether there is nitrogen locally in one side or on the other. This is a local response, but you can also compare these two conditions, and you also see a significant increase here compared to here. And this is what we call the systemic end demand. So the rationale is for both of these conditions, you have nitrates locally, so the local signal is the same, but here you still have more laterals. So it means that somehow you must have a signal, there's probably a signal coming from this part of the root, going to the shoot and then signaling back to this part of the root and increasing lateral growth. So this is why we say it's a systemic signal. And then you can also compare these two conditions. So same idea, you have no nitrates locally, like a local signal, but you see significant difference in the total lateral length in this condition compared to this one. So in that case, it means that there should be a signal coming from the plus N side of the split root system, going to the shoot and repressing this time lateral root growth on minus N side of the split root as compared to control. So this is the systemic end supply. So if we summarize what we know so far about the different signals and the molecular actors of this response, we know there is a local signal. So for this signal, we know that the NRT1.1, which is a nitrate transporter, but also a nitrate sensor, is involved in this response. And also a transcription factor was shown to be involved and work together with NRT1.1. We know that there is this systemic end demand signal that comes from the minus N side, go to the shoot and increase lateral length on the plus N side. For this response, we know that cytokinin, so the plant hormones, are involved in this response. There is also TCP20, which is a transcription factor, and SET and SEP receptors. So SET are small peptides. And it was shown that actually the peptides are synthesized, induced in this part, go to the shoot and meet the receptor in the shoot, and then we don't know how induce the response on the present side. And then there is this systemic end supply. that comes from the plus N side of the split roots, go to the shoot and repress lateral growth on the minus N side. And we know that TCP20, the same transcription factor, is also somehow involved. But overall, this response is pretty not known and not very well understood. So we wanted to learn more about this response by a different approach that was used so far, which is a genome-wide association study, so GWAS. And so the idea is to look at the foraging response across various different accessions of Arabidopsis in order to find genes associated to this response. So I would just like to remind you briefly the principle of GWAS before going any further. So imagine you have a trait that you can measure across various accessions. So in that case, the trait would be foraging, total length, for instance. And you have, like, for instance, n accessions. And you can divide these different accessions into accessions with high value of the traits and low values of the traits. What GWAS does is to look at all the different positions in the genome where you have a small nucleotide polymorphism, so a SNP, and look if there is a good correlation between the traits and the genotype. So, for instance, if you look at this particular SNP, you will see there is no particular good correlation between the genotype and the phenotype. But if you look at this SNP, the correlation is perfect between the genotype and the phenotype. So in that case, GWAS would find an association between the trait and the SNP, and we would visualize the result as a Manhattan plot. So in a Manhattan plot, you have the minus log p value of each SNP, depending on their position along the chromosome and along the genome. So this is like a measure of the score of the SNP. So the higher the score, the better. And if you find something significant, it generally looks something like this. So this is a very, very nice result, very clear. I don't always have things like this. So now the idea is to study root foraging and find genes involved in this response. So first I will show you the experimental design of this project, of this work, and then I will show you two examples of two different approaches that we use to analyze the results. So the first is just a regular GWAS approach, and the other one uses some network to deal with the data. So first, the experimental design. We used 80 Arabidopsis accessions from the notebook collection. So these are mostly from Europe, but also a little bit from USA, America, and from Asia. We grow these different accessions on the split root system. So this is how it works. So first, we sow the plants, the seeds, on a full medium. So full medium just means that they have all the nutrients they need at high level. After a few days, so the plant grow, after a few days, we cut the primary root just below the two first lateral roots that develop, so that then the lateral roots can keep growing, and there will be like two new primary roots that we can use on the split root system to make two equivalent parts. And so after a few days, we transfer them on a nitrate-deprived medium. So this is just to make the plants more responsive to the treatment afterwards. And finally, we transfer the plants on the split root system. And for this experiment, we used a labeled form of nitrates, so using N15, and I will explain you later why we do this. So after 4 days on this system, we can scan the plates and measure a lot of different root traits. I don't want you to focus on this, just to give you an idea that there is a lot. And what you can just remember is that we have 30 simple root traits for each side of the root, so minus and plus n. And we also determine 60 combined traits, which is making the difference or the ratio between plus n and minus n. The only trait I would like you to remember is the branching zone, which is the part of the primary root that shows visible lateral roots. So I will show you results about this trait later on. The other thing we can do after 4 days on split root system is to determine the N content of the plants. So as I told you before, we use a labeled form of nitrate with N15. So this is a heavy isotope of nitrogen, and we put it in the medium, and then we can measure how much was taken up by the plant, and we can determine how much you find in each part of the plant in particular. So after 4 days, we just harvest the different parts of the plant, so the left root, the right root, and the shoot. The plants are dried to measure the weight, and then using mass spectrometry, we can determine the N15 N14 ratio. And from that, we can also measure different kind of traits. So we have 6 simple root traits for each tissue, and about 15 combined traits. So combined traits are making difference in ratio between the left and right side. So these are the 2 types of traits we measured, so root traits and content related traits. And then we perform the GWAS itself. So to run the GWAS analysis, we use a tool, GWAS web application, which is specifically for Arabidopsis. So maybe sometime you will need to use it, but it's very user-friendly and very flexible tool, so it's very great. And so now I will show you the results that we got for root traits. One root trait, which is the branching zone, and this was done using just regular GWAS. So first, I just wanted to show you what the scans look like after 4 days on split root system. So you can see, depending on the accession, you have quite distinct type of responses. So the trait we are interested in here is branching zone, so the part of the primary root that has lateral roots. But more specifically, this is the branching zone ratio, so the ratio between the branching zone on plus n side versus minus n side. And when we measure it across the different accessions, we find actually quite a lot of variation in this trait, which is pretty interesting when you do a GWAS. So we ran the GWAS, and we found some significant hits associated to branching zone traits. So everything above this, the red line here, is significant. But we were most importantly interested in this particular hit because it has one of the highest p-values, and also because you have more than one significant SNP, which indicates that it's not like false positive, probably. And in that particular hit, we find a BZA1 gene, and which seemed to be a good candidate. And so in order to see if this gene really has a role in branching zone ratio traits, I used mutants, which are in Columbia 0 background. So the first mutant I used, BZA11, has a tDNA within the promoter of the gene. So this is a result for the wild type. You can clearly see the foraging response. And when you look at it for the mutant, actually it seems that the phenotype is even amplified. Like the ratio between left and right seems to be higher. So we measure the total lat length for this mutant and the wild type, and you can see here that you have actually a significant increase of root length in the mutant compared to the wild type on plus n, but there is no big difference on minus n side. So it seems that the response is mostly due to the plus n side, increasing on plus n side. And when you measure the branching zone ratio, you also find a significant increase in branching zone ratio. So after that, I just wanted to confirm the results with a different mutant, BZ12, but actually the results were pretty different. So this mutant this time is a EMS mutant with a stop codon at the beginning of the gene. And if you look at the phenotype, it seems that this time the mutant response is less responsive to the treatment. If you measure at total at length, you don't have significant difference on plus n side, or maybe some trend to decrease in total at length, and still no difference on minus n side. So when you measure the ratio, you don't either have much difference, a trend in decrease, but not significant results. So that was a little bit disturbing, and I was trying to find a way to understand this data. And the idea what I come up with was maybe this mutant, which is as a tDNA within the promoter, maybe it's not actually a KO, maybe it's an overexpressor. So I checked the expression level of BZL1 gene within the different genotypes, and this is the result. So you have for the wild type on plus n side and minus n side. So you see that you have a significant difference in gene expression on the two different conditions. When you look at the BZL1 mutant, this time you lose this differential expression, and significant differential expression. And most importantly, you have this huge increase in gene expression on the plus n side. And remember that the phenotype was mostly due to the plus n side. So this is encouraging. Considering what my hypothesis was. Just to finish the analysis here, you still, for the other mutant, you still have this significant differential level of expression. Overall, it's less expressed than in the wild type, but since anyway it's a stop codon mutation, we don't really care about the expression level of the mRNA. So it seems that indeed this mutant is an overexpressor line, but now I would like to confirm that by making some transgenic constructs. So this is still in progress. So just to summarize this first part, so we found BT1 associated to the Branchington ratio by GWAS. We found two different mutants that have quite opposite phenotypes on streetwood. One is an overexpression line and has an increase in foraging response. The other one is a KO and has equivalent or maybe decreased foraging response. So the idea would be that the model would be that BZL1, in presence of nitrogen, would tend to increase lateral growth and thus foraging. So now I just would like to produce a certified as BZ1 overexpression line to validate my hypothesis and confirm that this is the overexpression that is responsible for the phenotype. So this was the first example we used just with regular GWAS. And then I have another kind of approach that we use to study NUE. So NUE is nitrogen use efficiency. So this is somehow how efficient is a plant to use nitrogen it finds in soil. And here we defined it as how much shoots can be produced per unit of nitrogen taken out from the soil. And so this is what NUE looks like in the different oxidation. So we have also quite interesting variation in traits across the oxidation, 4 times for change. Unfortunately, when we ran the GWAS for this trait, we couldn't find any significant hits. So why couldn't we find anything? One possibility to explain that is that this trait might be controlled by protein complex involving various genes. So imagine you have a variation in different accession in different genes. So accession 1 has a variation in gene 1, association 2 in gene 2, association 3 in gene 3. And all these different variation can disturb or modify the function of the protein complex, but would still have the same phenotype. In that case, GWAS would not be able to find an association between any particular SNP and the trait. But if we consider all the different genes together, maybe then we can find something related to the phenotype. So in that case, the idea is that the modification in each of these different genes would not be significant with GWAS, but maybe you can find weak association by GWAS, not significant, but still detectable. So we decided to combine the GWAS results with a network approach. So this is how we did it. So we took the GWAS results, which means that for each different SNP we have a p-value. So none of them are significant, but we can still sort them from the most significant to the less. And we can decide to take the top 50 SNPs and then find all the genes associated, so close to these SNPs, to make protein-protein interaction network. And then try to find candidate genes. So this is what I did for NUE, and here is the result of the network using the top 50 SNP and protein-protein interaction network. So we find 166 genes in this network and 17 hubs. So here hubs are defined as genes highly connected, so like with more equal to 5 connections. If we look at the gene annotations related to this particular network, we find terms that are consistent with NUE. So we have terms related to N metabolism, to regulation of protein function, signaling, cell cycle. So this is encouraging for the concerning methodology. So then I wanted to focus more on the hubs of the network. So this is a sub-network from the previous one, which only takes the hubs and all the genes associated to these hubs. And what you can see here is that there are 6 hubs that are very highly connected to each other. And among these hubs, one, we call it NUE1, is a hub associated with one of the best called SNPs from GWAS. And this gene is known to belong to a complex that play a role in the stimulation of cell growth and metabolism in response to nutrients, which makes it a very good candidate for controlling NUE or to be imported in NUE. So, same as previously, I found mutants in Colombia background, and I tried to find, to determine if these mutants are affect in any way the NUE. So this is very preliminary results and it needs to be confirmed, but it's kind of encouraging. So you have here the 2 different mutants and the wild type, and everything is presented as a percentage of the wild type. So you can see that in the first mutant you have a 15% increase. It's not significant, but almost. And for the second one, you have a small increase, which is not significant here. But these results were made with very little number of plants, so it really needs to be repeated and with more replicates. So this is encouraging, but we don't know yet if it's really meaningful or not. So for this part, we combine GWAS and protein-protein interaction network to identify genes involved in NUE. We identified a network with annotation relevant to NUE, and in this network we find a gene, NUE1, which is a good candidate for regulation of NUE. It's a hub in the network, and it has it's known to have a function very relevant to anyway. So now what I have to do is to confirm the functional validation, and also we have some computational validation to run to validate this this methodology. So just to summarize what we did in this project, so we did a large study with 80 accessions run on scripted system. We studied a lot of different traits related to root morphology and content, and we performed GWAS on all of these traits. When we could find, sometimes we had insignificant hits, and this led to the identification of some interesting candidate genes for some traits, like BCA1. And when we couldn't find significant hits, we tried a network approach. And this also led to the identification of some candidates, so in particular NUE1. And these are promising results, but we are still now at the level of functional validation. So, to finish, I would like to thank all the people involved in this work. So, Blair Cody, my supervisor at New York University, and Sandrine Lefebvre, who is a collaborator in France. They both did the experiment itself, so growing the plants and doing all the experiments. And then these people are more involved in the downstream analysis together with me. And Ulysses helped me to take over the project also because he was involved in it when he was in New York University. And I would like to thank my support. And muchas gracias por su atención. So now if you have any question, I just leave my last slide so that you can react.
Yeah, thank you very much. Preguntas. Sí.
So it was not clear for me. The BCA the variation was in Colombia,
No,
the mutant were in Colombia.
the mutant only.
But not the variation.
The variation is across the different accessions, so the different ecotypes. That's how we found the candidate genes, but then we tried to validate them in Colombia by using mutants and transgenic.
Yes, but maybe there were more far away distance variation among other accessions that were not Columbia, so when you use Columbia, it's not exactly the same as the
Yeah,
other.
sure. So I showed you example that works, but of course it might not work for every kind of traits, and we can also try graftings or maybe crossing to study other traits. Yeah, because of course Colombia is kind of in the middle for most of the traits, but yeah, it doesn't cover the whole diversity.
Yes, nice talk. I have 3 questions. Could you tell us about the identity of the BCA1 and NUE1 gene?
I wish.
And then the third is about the validation. Have you done the resequencing of these genes to find really the cause of the mutation or variation of these proteins?
So as far as the identity is concerned, I'm not allowed to tell you exactly.
The general function.
Okay.
Does it make sense with your traits?
Yes,
or?
it makes
Yes?
sense. Yeah, because so for instance, this one was shown to have role in nitrogen response in our lab actually before, and this one is I told you it's part of a big complex that that integrates lots of different information from the environment, and especially nutrient informations, and in particular nitrogen. So yeah, it's very consistent and relevant. And second question, sorry.
The validation of your SNPs.
Yes.
Have you located
Yes.
the causal SNPs?
I tried to, for this gene, I tried to find which could be the particular SNP within the gene, and I couldn't find that. No. So, yeah, but I guess I have to dig deeper on that. Yeah.
In your network analysis, so you basically take the top GWAS hits, and then you see what interacts with those genes, and then you do the goal term analysis, and you find some enrichment path. Is there a way to, I guess there must be a way to figure out whether, by chance you get something similar, right? So you take.
That's what the computational validation is about. So the idea is for computational validation is to take random SNPs or random genes. There are different ways to do it, and to see if we find similar kind of enrichment or not. Also, to take the same SNPs but kind of change the order of the SNPs in terms of score, and see how the structure of the network is different or whatever. So, yeah, this is part of the validation we have to do. Yeah.
When you use this the split root system, you look for lateral roots that are already growing, but have you looked to the primordia and see if just no primordia and to induce primordia in this system? Because your phenotype also includes that is in the it gets longer the roots, but probably not more roots.
Yeah. So actually, there was a work that paper that came out later after the first one with using split roots that dissects more precisely the different regulations of the root response, and so they show that on the plus n side, so the part of the root that already has lateral roots, the response is mostly about growth, whereas the new part of the root is both growth and initiation. So you change the lateral density also on the new part of the root that is growing while it's on split root. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, but in your system, when you are looking for your screening, you're not doing that. You're just looking for having more roots or having less.
We have a lot of different traits.
Okay.
And in particular, we have the length. We know what is the length of the root that grow after transfer, as compared to the one that was already present before transfer from split root. And then you also know how much roots and how long they are for each different segment, I think. So you could also measure lateral density for each part, and so yeah, this is something we have also, but I'm not sure that for this particular trait we got significant hits, for instance.
Final? May I? The BCA mutant, well, the gene, maybe you cannot tell us which gene is, but can you tell us in which family?
So it's histolytic transferase. So it's epigenetic. And it's part of a large family, like 30 genes. So lot of redundancy. So maybe that's why also why the mutant, the K mutant doesn't have so much phenotype, whereas the overexpressor seems to have a huge phenotype.
No más preguntas. Well, thank you very much.